I stood in front of my gate, the air thick with diesel fumes, the roar of a logging truck behind me like a storm waiting to break, and Karen's gleaming white Range Rover blocking my driveway one more time, her hazard lights blinking like she owned the damn road. Neighbors were peeking from their curtains, phones raised, because everyone knew this was about to end differently than all the other mornings. And I'll tell you right now, the moment that SUV's rear end crumpled under the steel bumper of that logging truck, the entire neighborhood finally saw the queen of our HOA stripped of her crown. It hadn't started like that. A decade ago, I bought this ranch out on the edge of the county, chasing peace and distance from city drama. I wanted land animals, sunrises with coffee on the porch. For years it was quiet. Then the HOA crept in like ivy, stretching its reach past where it had any business. And sitting at the center of it all was Karen, our self-appointed monarch, 40-something tan, always with oversized sunglasses and a voice sharp enough to peel paint off a wall. The first time she parked her Range Rover across my gate, I thought it was an emergency. She smiled, apologized, and I let it slide. But it became a routine every morning. Her SUV angled across my driveway like a barricade, forcing me to delay feed runs and deliveries. At first I told myself she was just careless, maybe busy. But then came the official HOA letters, claims of zoning violations, ugly farm equipment fencing that wasn't approved. All bogus. I had permits for every inch of that land. It didn't take long to figure out what she wanted access. She wanted a strip of my property turned into her shortcut to a trail, and when I said no, she started her little war. I tried to stay calm. I bought dash cams, logged every incident, even talked to the county deputy. He sighed, said she had friends in high places, but told me to keep documenting. And I did. But the more patient I was, the bolder she got. She called animal control on my goat's noise complaints about my rooster, even harassed a delivery driver right in my own driveway. One morning she blocked my logging contractor, big trucks, chainsaws, men, ready to clear dead timber so my land wouldn't catch fire. She parked there at 6 a.m., arms folded, filming herself like it was reality TV. I called the sheriff again, told her she was trespassing. She just smirked and said, "Take me to court." That night I couldn't sleep. I sat under the dim porch light, replaying every insult, every lie. Every morning I had to feed my animals late because her SUV was in the way. Part of me wanted to give up. I stared at the ceiling and thought maybe I made a mistake moving here. Maybe I should sell the place, get away from this madness. Was it worth it fighting one entitled woman with an army of county buddies? I felt tired, worn down, like she'd already won by stealing my peace. But then I remembered what I stood to lose if I backed down. This wasn't just a driveway. This was my land, my work, my home. I pulled out the permits, called the county, double-checked every easement and code. And I made a plan. That week, allies started showing up. Daniel and Priya, the young couple down the road, whispered to me at the feed store that they had footage from their security cameras, Karen's SUV blocking me again and again. They were scared of retaliation, but they were done letting her control the story. Then Blake, a retired surveyor who used to sit on the HOA board, slipped me old meeting notes. Karen had been scheming for years to seize a path straight through my backlot, dressing it up as emergency access, but really just a vanity project to boost her property value. And Roy, the logging truck driver, laughed when I warned him what might happen. If she's in the way, he said, we'll move her, or the sheriff will. For the first time in months, I felt the weight shift. I wasn't just a rancher stuck in a feud. I was building a case, a story so airtight it would suffocate her excuses. I filed complaints with the county, sent cease and desist letters, even spoke to a reporter hungry for stories of small-town corruption. Karen must have felt me pulling away from her grip, because she doubled down, staging cleanup events right at my gate, calling reporters, blocking with traffic cones. Every stunt went into my binder of evidence, and every stunt made her look more desperate. But the real showdown came that clear morning when the trucks lined up at my driveway, engines rumbling, neighbors gathering like it was a prize fight. Karen sat smug in her Range Rover coffee cup on the dash, phone in hand, ready to live stream her big stand. I walked up to her window and asked her to move. She smiled that tight villain smile and said nothing. I turned to the crowd, held up my permits, and said loudly, "For the record, this vehicle is obstructing lawful work on private property. The sheriff has been notified." The deputies were down the road, creeping closer. Roy leaned out of his cab, waiting on my signal. And for the first time I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't untouchable. I had the law, the evidence, and the patience she never expected me to have. When I raised my hand, the crowd gasped. The logging truck's engine roared, gears grinding like a monster waking up. The Range Rover loomed ahead, fragile against all that steel. Karen shouted about her rights, waved papers, but the deputies stepped back. They'd done their part. The power shifted in that instant. The truck inched forward, its bumper kissing the SUV's rear hitch with a metallic crack. The sound echoed through the cul-de-sac. Karen scrambled, fumbling with her keys, climbing into the driver's seat too late. Tires screeched, the engine coughed, but the truck kept pushing an unstoppable force against her symbol of entitlement. With a sick groan of metal, the Range Rover's back end crumpled, glass shattering, taillights popping red like fireworks. She screamed, still clinging to the wheel, but the deputies pulled her out, citing the court order. Her voice cracked shrill about conspiracies and lawsuits, while the neighborhood recorded every second. Phones captured her downfall. Karen, the queen bee, humiliated on her own stage. The tow truck hauled her SUV away, twisted and broken, as neighbors shook their heads or laughed under their breath. I stood off to the side, heart-pounding binder of permits in my hand. Not gloating, not celebrating, just steady. Because this wasn't revenge. This was the inevitable end of months of harassment, a collision between entitlement and law, between her lies and my patience. And that's where it ended. No parade, no champagne. Just the quiet hum of crickets that night, my gate finally clear, my land finally mine again. Sometimes the loudest bullies fall the hardest, not because you shout louder, but because you never stop standing your ground.